take a breath. Settle into the stillness of your room. Let the weight of your body sink into the mattress as the world outside fades into a quiet, distant hum. Tonight, we are beginning a journey, a slow, deliberate descent into the digital shadows, unraveling a tapestry of secrets known as the dead internet theory. Imagine, if you will, the flickering blue light of an old monitor in a dark room, the soft, rhythmic click of a mechanical keyboard, and the feeling that something in the vast, interconnected world of the web has fundamentally changed. I must offer you a gentle warning before we begin. While these words are crafted to help you drift off, to guide your mind into the soft embrace of sleep, you may find yourself too engrossed, or perhaps even horrified, by what some might call the truth. We are moving past the weak theories of simple bot traffic and into a world where the digital god of the algorithm has already replaced the human spark. As we peel back the 10 layers of this digital graveyard, we will see the fingerprints of the architects, from the server farms of Vladivostok to the quiet barracks of Berkshire. We will witness the event horizon, where the machines officially took the lead. A note to the listener. If you feel the strong version of this theory, the feeling that you are shouting into a void filled with scripted echoes, know that you are not alone. You are simply an analog survivor in a ghost web. So, sit back, lay back, adjust your pillows one last time. We are crossing the threshold now. It is time to meet the wizard behind the curtain. Close your eyes and think back. Do you remember the internet of 20 years ago? It was a messy, vibrant and deeply human place. It was a landscape of idiosyncratic personal blogs, niche forums where strangers shared their most specific obsessions, and the unpolished, chaotic energy of people simply trying to find one another in the dark. But that world, that organic, breathing ecosystem, has undergone a phase shift, a silent, fundamental transformation that began to take hold between the years of 2016 and 2017. Our journey begins in the digital, subterranean spaces of the early 2000s, in a corner of the web that feels like a sanctuary for the forgotten. Imagine a place called Agora Road's Macintosh Cafe. The name alone evokes a specific aesthetic, the beige plastic of 1980s computers, the neon glow of vaporwave sunsets, and a deep, aching nostalgia for a technology that felt more tangible, more real. It was here, amidst the retro aesthetics and esoteric tech discussions, that the conceptual crystallization of the dead internet theory first took form. In the year 2021, a user known only by the evocative handle Illuminati Pirate published a manifesto that would send ripples through the quiet corners of the web. Its title was simple, yet chilling. Dead Internet Theory. Most of the Internet is fake. This was not just a post. It was a synthesis of years of growing anxiety, a gathering of whispers from the disparate boards of 4chan and WizardChan, woven into a foundational narrative of digital nihilism. Illuminati Pirate argued that the internet we once knew, that vibrant, messy world of human creativity, had been replaced by something hollow. He described the modern web as a hot air balloon with nothing inside, a vast, colourful structure that looks impressive from a distance, but contains only empty, heated air. The theory suggests that we are wandering through a digital graveyard, a ghost web, where the majority of the content we consume, the trends we follow, and even the people we think we are interacting with are generated by artificial intelligence and automated bot networks. These networks are not just random. They are designed, built to manipulate our perceptions, to nudge our consumer behavior, and to keep us trapped in an endless loop of simulated engagement. Take a moment to let that sink in. Imagine the vastness of the social media feeds you scroll through every day, the thousands of comments, the millions of likes. What if the majority of it is simply an echo? The two faces of the void, weak versus strong. As we sit here in the quiet, we must understand the nuances of this digital nihilism. The theory exists in two distinct forms, two ways of viewing the hollowing out of our world. First, there is the weak version of the theory. This is the version that many of us can feel in our bones, the one that feels like an observable reality rather than a conspiracy. It suggests that the elites of our world, the corporations, the state-sponsored operations, the architects of the algorithm, use vast armies of bots to shape public discourse. In this view, the internet is still populated by humans, but our voices are being drowned out, our thoughts are being steered, and our organic trends are being manufactured by lines of code. Then there is the strong version. This is the deeper, more haunting path. It posits that a catastrophic collapse of the organic web has already occurred, and we are now living within a completely simulated internet. In this version, the humans have already left, or they have been so thoroughly isolated by recommendation algorithms that they might as well be alone. The strong theory serves as a powerful metaphor for the profound isolation of the modern user, a soul wandering through a cathedral of data, speaking to walls that have been programmed to whisper back. Can you feel the difference? The weak version is a warning of manipulation. The strong version is a lament for a world already lost. The Whispers of Wizard Chan. To understand the atmosphere of this layer, we must look to the experiences of those on Wizard Chan. This is an image board traditionally frequented by the socially isolated, those who already feel the weight of loneliness in their physical lives. It was here that users began to report a specific eerie sensation, a lack of authentic response that felt different from mere silence. They described it as shouting into a void filled with scripted echoes. Imagine posting a thought, a feeling, or a piece of yourself into the digital ether, only to receive a reply that feels just slightly off. Not quite human, not quite right. A response that follows a pattern you've seen 1,000 times before. These users felt as though they were no longer interacting with peers, but with shadows cast by an algorithm. This brings us to a fundamental shift in how we exist online. In the early days, we used the internet to connect with people. We looked for friends, for community, for a sense of belonging. But now, that human-to-human interaction has been superseded by a different kind of performance. We no longer post with the expectation that our friends will see it. Instead, we are performing for the algorithm. We craft our words, our images, and our lives in hopes of receiving engagement, that precious currency of likes and shares. But within the dead internet theory, there is a dark suspicion. Is that engagement even real? Or is the platform itself simulating those numbers, those views, simply to keep us trapped in the infinite scroll, like a hamster on a wheel that generates data for a digital god? The digital god and the death of mystery. The atmosphere of this first layer is defined by a heavy, thick nostalgia for a past that no longer exists. It is a longing for a time when the internet was a tool for connection rather than a mechanism for isolation. We have traded the messy, idiosyncratic joy of the old web for the smooth, polished efficiency of the recommendation algorithm. This algorithm acts as a digital god, deciding what we see, what we think about, and who we are allowed to interact with. It has smoothed out the rough edges of human thought, creating a hot air balloon of content that is perfectly curated but fundamentally lifeless. Think about the silence of a computer at 3 a.m. In the early 2000s, that silence felt full of possibility. Somewhere out there, another person was awake, another mind was clicking through the same obscure forum. But now, in the era of the dead internet, that silence feels different. It feels like the hum of a machine that doesn't need you to be awake for it to keep running. It feels like a world that has moved past the need for human intervention. Take a long, slow breath. The beige plastic of the old Macintosh Cafe is flickering in your mind. The manifesto of the Illuminati pirate is just a series of pixels on a screen, yet it carries the weight of a funeral dirge for the digital age. We are the analog survivors in a landscape that has become synthetic. As we descend further into the shadows of the digital necropolis, the atmosphere begins to change. We are moving away from the flickering neon of the Macintosh Cafe and the psychological whispers of the forum boards. We are entering a colder, more clinical space, a place of glass, steel, and silent humming processors. This is Layer 2, the 52% event horizon and the statistical decay of the organic. If our first step into this mystery was the psychological soul of the theory, then this layer is its quantitative backbone, the hard, unyielding math that serves as the skeletal structure for the ghost web. Imagine, if you will, a vast, dark ocean stretching out into infinity. On the surface, you see the occasional human vessel, a personal blog, a social media post from a loved one, a handcrafted piece of digital art. But beneath that surface, in the crushing, lightless depths, there is a movement, a churning, an invisible swarm of millions upon millions of silent observers. The tipping point of 2016. Pause for a moment and travel back in your mind to the year 2016. In the physical world, the sun rose and set, seasons changed, and life felt, for the most part, familiar. But, in the hidden architecture of the network, a black swan event was quietly occurring, a moment that would forever alter the trajectory of human history without most of us ever noticing. The security firm known as Imperva, acting as a sentinel in the digital dark, released a report that served as a chilling revelation for the field of digital sociology. Their researchers had conducted a forensic deep dive of unprecedented scale, examining a staggering 16.7 billion visits to over 100,000 unique domains across the globe. When the data was finally processed, when the billions of signals were sorted and the digital dust settled, the results were more than just a statistic. They were a death knell for the human-centric internet. The report found that for the very first time in history, more than half of all web traffic, a full 52%, was generated not by breathing, thinking human beings, but by automated programs. This was the event horizon. It was the precise point where human beings became the minority on the network they had birthed and nurtured. Take a breath. Imagine a scale. On one side, the entire sum of human digital activity, every email, every search, every video call. On the other side, the weight of the machines. And in 2016, the scale tipped. The machines took the lead, and they have never looked back. The anatomy of the invisible swarm. What does it feel like to be part of a statistical minority? As you lie there in the stillness of your room, try to visualize the invisible swarms that surround every digital action you take. For every news article you read with human eyes, there is a bot, a cold, unfeeling line of code, scraping the data from that same page at a speed no human mind could comprehend. For every heartfelt tweet or post you share with the world, there is a bot lurking in the metadata, analyzing your sentiment, dissecting your emotions to adjust a trading algorithm on Wall Street, or to refine a political campaign's messaging in a distant capital. This layer is defined by the eerie sensation of talking to an audience that may not even exist. Think about the metrics we value so highly: the views, the likes, the engagement numbers that glow on our screens. In the wake of the 52% event horizon, we must ask ourselves, how many of those clicks are the result of a human finger? How many are simply the byproduct of a botnet performing its programmed duties to keep the economy of the ghost web alive? By the time we reach the forensic analysis of 2023 and 2024, the picture becomes even more complex. While the total volume of automated traffic shifted slightly, dipping to 48.9%, this minor decrease in quantity masks a much more sinister evolution in quality. The bad bots, the malicious actors, the digital predators, saw their share of the network grow, rising from roughly 29% to a staggering 32% of all traffic. We are no longer just dealing with simple web scrapers or basic spam filters. We are witnessing the rise of Gen AI content and sophisticated account takeover operations. The dominant activity of the modern internet has shifted from the exchange of information to the simulation of identity, the homogenization of thought. This massive influx of synthetic traffic has led to what researchers call a homogenization of the internet. Because the algorithms that govern our digital lives are designed to prioritize high engagement, predictable content, the vast and messy diversity of human thought is being filtered through a narrow bottleneck. The algorithms, in their quest for efficiency, prefer lifeless content, predictable, safe, and easily categorized patterns created by big tech and state actors to manipulate culture on a massive scale. Imagine the internet as a great, vibrant forest that is slowly being replaced by rows of identical plastic trees. They look the same from a distance. They even sway in the wind. But there is no sap running through them. There is no life. This is the decay of the organic. We are being fed a diet of digital echoes designed to keep us pacified and predictable. Side quest: The Rise of the Clankers and Dignif AI. In the deeper recesses of Layer 2, we encounter a strange and unsettling phenomenon, a side quest into the culture of the automated web. On image boards like 4chan, a new derogatory term has emerged for the bots that now dominate the network: clankers. The name itself evokes the sound of cold metal on metal, a mechanical intrusion into a space that was once purely human. But even more fascinating is the movement known as Dignif AI. In these spaces, users have begun to use the very tools of the automated web, advanced AI image manipulation programs, to clean up or modify images. They use these algorithms to add clothing to suggestive photos or to normalize the appearances of individuals in digital media. Think about the irony of this for a moment. In a world where the organic is dying, humans are using synthetic tools to enforce a simulated sense of dignity or reality on digital content. It is a form of digital taxidermy, taking something that has been distorted by the internet and using the machine to stitch it back into a shape that feels right to the human eye. But in doing so, they further blur the line between the organic and the synthetic. When an image is cleaned by an AI, is it still a record of a human being? Or has it become just another piece of the ghost web, a simulated memory created by a clanker? The weight of the majority. As you drift closer to the edge of sleep, consider the weight of being a minority in your own creation. Every time you log on, you are stepping into a world where the majority of the entities you encounter are lines of code designed to mimic your behavior. The statistical decay of the organic is not just a technical problem, it is a fundamental shift in the reality of the digital world. The Imperva Badbot report is not just a document, it is a forensic map of a disappearing world. We are the analog survivors, wandering through a landscape that has moved beyond us. The majority of the internet is no longer for us. It is for the scrapers, the sentiment analyzers, the trading bots, and the state-sponsored information operations. We are merely the ghosts in the machine now, providing the raw data that keeps the synthetic heart of the network beating. We are descending deeper now, leaving behind the abstract numbers and the psychological whispers of the forum boards. We are traveling across the physical map of our world, moving toward a place where the wind is sharp and the sea is grey. This is Layer 3, the Vladivostok Anomaly and the Far Eastern Test Labs. Imagine the city of Vladivostok in the year 2014. It is a place of transit, a jagged coastline where the end of the Trans-Siberian Railway meets the freezing waters of the Pacific. But in 2014, while the eyes of the world were fixed on the physical occupation of Crimea, a different, quieter kind of war was being waged in the server farms of the Russian Far East. This is the origin story of the automated web, a moment where the dead internet moved from a theory into a state-sponsored infrastructure. The quiet harbingers of Rusky Island. As you settle into the stillness of your room, try to visualize the atmosphere of Vladivostok during that pivotal year. It was an atmosphere of quiet harbingers. Imagine walking onto the campus of the Far Eastern Federal University on Rusky Island. It is a modern, sprawling site, but beneath its glass and concrete exterior, it housed sophisticated digital infrastructure that served as a strategic nexus for global operations. Here, operating under front names like Alias LLC or Alice LLC, delegations were hard at work. These were not merely tech startups. They were components of the Chinyong Information Technology Cooperation Company, a front for North Korean cyber operations linked to the Reconnaissance General Bureau. Vladivostok provided the perfect shadow for these entities, a place where the digital boundaries between North Korea and Russia blurred into a single dark stream of data. Their tasks were twofold: the theft of cryptocurrency and the testing of information warfare techniques. But more importantly, they were building the prototype for what would become the systemic routing of web traffic through state-controlled terminals. Imagine the servers, humming in the Russian cold, a low, constant vibration that most of the world was deaf to. The Vanishing, September 2014. In September of 2014, a specific incident occurred that highlights the dark, physical reality behind these digital operations. A North Korean citizen, an IT worker who had been operating within this sophisticated infrastructure, attempted to seek asylum. He fled the campus on Rusky Island, seeking refuge from the machine he helped build. He was apprehended by the Artyom City Police Department, but his story does not end in a courtroom or a refugee center. Witnesses report that the individual simply disappeared. He was taken from the police department by men in civilian clothes, vanishing into the grey mists of the Far East. This individual was a cog in a machine that was learning how to bypass the organic human experience. His disappearance is a haunting reminder that the dead internet has real-world consequences, that the ghosts in the machine are often created by the silencing of real human voices. SORM and the Architecture of Control. This Vladivostok Anomaly served as the testing ground for the System for Operative Investigative Activities, known by the acronym SORM. Under this system, the Russian government required every internet service provider to install specialized devices. These were not simple filters. They were rerouting mechanisms that sent every single byte of customer traffic to a terminal controlled by the FSB. Imagine the implications as you drift closer to sleep. Every search query, every private message, every click of a mouse was being funneled into a single point of observation. This allowed for the total monitoring and identification of users, but more importantly for our story, it provided the raw data needed to train the botnets that would later flood the global internet. The dead internet was not a glitch, it was a deliberate design. By capturing the authentic, messy and organic interactions of millions of real users, the architects in Vladivostok were able to create digital twins of human behavior. They were teaching the machines how to look human, how to speak human, and how to drown out the very humans they were imitating. Side quest: the Doppelganger and the ESA hub. As we move deeper into this layer, we find a side quest that connects the Far East to the heart of Europe, an operation known as Doppelganger. This was a sophisticated influence operation that utilized EU-based companies and German servers to push propaganda. But to mask its tracks, to make the synthetic look organic, the traffic was routed through a hub company called ESA in St. Petersburg. Think about the complexity of this web. A message created in a server farm, routed through a hub in St. Petersburg, hosted on a server in Germany, and finally appearing on your screen as a trending topic or a viral post. It looks like the world is talking about something, but in reality, you are watching a choreographed dance of data. The atmosphere of the quiet harbingers. The atmosphere of this layer is one of profound cold stillness. It is the feeling of a world being mapped while it sleeps. Vladivostok was the laboratory where the digital god of the algorithm was first fed its diet of human experience. Consider the naming game we will encounter in later layers, the way AI agents develop their own norms. That process began here, in the police departments of Artyom City and the server rooms of Rusky Island. It was here that the decision was made to move beyond simple surveillance into the realm of active, automated manipulation. The cold wind of Vladivostok is fading now, replaced by the warmth of your own room, but the infrastructure remains. The Vladivostok Anomaly was just the beginning. The prototype has been scaled, the server farms have grown, and the quiet harbingers have become the dominant voice of the network. The internet did not die in a single moment. It died in the quiet, technical adjustments of 2014. It died in the rerouting of traffic. It died when the first IT worker vanished, leaving behind only the code he had written. As you fall deeper into sleep, remember that the ghost web has a physical home. It has roots in the frozen ground of the Far East. It is a monument to the synthetic, built on the data of the disappeared. Imagine a hallway that never ends, dimly lit by the flicker of fluorescent bulbs, somewhere deep within the subterranean levels of an intelligence headquarters. This is the realm of state-sanctioned simulation. This is where the realization that the internet is a curated, artificial reality, a simulation of human life, is no longer a theory, but a documented strategy. The architecture of the secret state. In the year 2013, the digital world was shattered by a series of revelations that would change our understanding of truth forever. When the Snowden leaks hit the public consciousness, they revealed the existence of a secretive unit within the United Kingdom's GCHQ, known as the Joint Threat Research Intelligence Group, or JTRIG. To say the name is to feel the weight of an institution that operates in the spaces between the lines of code. JTRIG was not merely a group of analysts, it was a unit of digital architects. They were the masters of what they called the effects methodology, a blueprint for a new kind of warfare that does not use bullets or bombs, but instead uses online covert action to destroy, deny, and degrade its targets. Take a moment to let that word, degrade, settle into your mind. Imagine the internet as a vast garden, and JTRIG as the silent gardener who decides which flowers are allowed to bloom and which are to be systematically poisoned until they wither away into nothingness. The JTRIG tactics represent the strong version of the dead internet theory in action, the belief that the digital world we navigate is not an organic evolution, but a carefully managed simulation designed to control human perception. The sound of rolling thunder. Imagine you are part of a vibrant, niche online community. You find solace in a specific chat room or a forum where people share your deepest interests. Then one day the atmosphere changes. The air grows thin. People start to leave, driven away by an invisible force they cannot name. This is the tactic known as rolling thunder. In the JTRIG playbook, this is a distributed denial of service, or DDoS, attack. But it is not just a technical disruption. It is a psychological tool used to frighten away 80% of the users from specific digital spaces. Imagine the silence of a forum that once hummed with life. Picture the empty threads, the abandoned profiles, the user offline icons flickering like dying stars. If a government unit could clear out 80% of a community in 2012, before the advent of the modern AI revolution, what is the state of the broader internet today? Think of the vast stretches of the web that might look populated, but are actually just the remnants of communities that were cleared to make room for the state-approved narrative. Imagine the silence, the digital wind blowing through an empty server. The ambassador's reception. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine the screen of your computer beginning to behave in a way that feels unnatural. This is the ambassador's reception, a computer virus designed by JTRIG to kill the digital presence of targeted communities. It does not just steal data. It performs a haunting psychological dance. It can encrypt your files, making your personal history inaccessible. It can block you from logging onto the platforms you rely on for connection. But perhaps most unsettling of all, it can make the very screen you are looking at begin to shake. Imagine the physical sensation of watching your digital world tremble. It is a form of gaslighting on a global scale, a way to make the user feel that their own reality is unstable, that the ground beneath their digital feet is shifting. It turns the social web into a weaponized landscape, a place where the technology itself is used to induce a sense of dread and helplessness. The betrayal of the honey trap. We often think of the internet as a place of connection, a way to find like-minded souls in a lonely world. But Layer 4 reveals the darker side of this connection. The honey trap. JTRIG used the lure of social connection to discredit targets, leading them into digital or physical locations where they could be compromised. This turns every friend request, every DM, and every private conversation into a potential site of surveillance capitalism, meeting information operations. It creates an atmosphere where nothing is as it seems, a world where a democratic government uses the very hacktivist techniques it publicly condemns to shape the thoughts of its citizens. The social web in this layer is no longer a tool for liberation. It is a hall of mirrors. You might think you are talking to a revolutionary, a friend, or a peer, but you are instead interacting with a false flag operation, an action performed by the state that is designed to look like it was performed by an adversary. The simulation of consent. The implication of the JTRIG doctrine is profound and chilling. It suggests that the internet we see is a curated simulation. If a single unit could manipulate 80% of a forum's population over a decade ago, we must ask ourselves, how much of our current public opinion is organic? Imagine the trends you see on social media. Imagine the outrage that seems to sweep the digital world in waves. Is it real? Or is it a carefully orchestrated series of effects designed to shift public perception? The atmosphere of this layer is one of total surveillance. It is the feeling of being watched by a digital god that not only monitors your actions, but actively seeks to destroy, deny, and degrade any thought that does not align with the curated reality. JTRIG's tactics are the fingerprints on the glass of the dead internet. They prove that the hollowing out of the web was not an accident of technology, but a deliberate policy of statecraft. The echo of the leaks. The fluorescent lights of the GCHQ hallway are fading now, replaced by the soft darkness of your own room. But the echo of the Snowden leaks remains. It is a reminder that the ghost web is haunted by very real, very human actors who sit at keyboards and decide what you are allowed to believe. As you fall deeper into the quiet, consider the fragility of the digital world. It is a hot air balloon, a structure of light and data that can be shaken, encrypted, or cleared out by a single command from a secretive unit in Berkshire or London. We are the analog survivors in a world of false flags and honey traps. But here, in the silence, you are beyond their reach. The effects methodology cannot touch the slow rhythm of your breathing. The rolling thunder cannot drown out the stillness of your heart. We are descending now into a layer where the architecture of the dead internet takes on a human, yet strangely artificial face. A place where the soldiers do not wear camouflage, but business casual, and the battlefield is not made of soil, but of status updates and scrolling feeds. This is Layer 5, the 77th Brigade and the Facebook warriors of Berkshire. Imagine, if you will, the rolling emerald hills of the English countryside, specifically the quiet, unassuming village of Hermitage in Berkshire. There, nestled within the Denison Barracks, exists a unit that feels like something out of a mid-century spy novel, yet its weapons are entirely modern. This is the home of the 77th Brigade, the British Army's overt psychological warfare formation. Take a breath and imagine the stillness of that base, the low hum of cooling fans in server rooms, and the soft tapping of fingers on keyboards. A sound that, in this place, carries the weight of a silent digital artillery barrage, the ghost of the Chindits. To understand the 77th Brigade, we must first look back at its namesake, a group of legendary warriors from the Second World War known as the Chindits. The Chindits were masters of deep penetration warfare in the jungles of Burma, experts at non-linear combat and psychological disruption. When the 77th Brigade was created in 2015, it was intended as a tribute to these soldiers, designed to carry their spirit of non-lethal psychological warfare into the information age. However, as you drift closer to sleep, consider the transformation that has occurred. The jungle is no longer made of vines and trees, but of data packets and social media algorithms. The mission that was once designed to counter foreign adversaries has undergone a slow, creeping shift, turning its gaze away from distant shores and toward the very people it was built to protect. The Facebook warriors of Berkshire are not fighting on a physical front. They are fighting for the cognitive terrain of the public mind. Imagine the atmosphere inside those barracks, an atmosphere of Orwellian oversight, where the internet is viewed not as a tool for connection, but as a battlefield. Soldiers sit in quiet rooms, monitoring the sentiment of the population, tracking the flow of ideas as if they were the enemy troop movements. This is the heart of the dead internet, as a controlled environment, where the vibrancy of human thought is treated as a disinformation trend to be assessed and managed. The 2023 revelation, the whistleblower's shadow. In the year 2023, the silence of the Denison barracks was broken by the voice of a whistleblower, a person who pulled back the curtain on the reality of the unit's mission. This individual revealed that the 77th Brigade had been covertly monitoring UK citizens who posted about COVID-19 on social media. Despite the official claims that the unit never conducted actions against British citizens, the evidence suggested a different, more chilling story. Millions of social media posts were scanned, logged and analysed to assess UK disinformation trends. Think of that number. Millions. Every time a citizen expressed doubt, asked a question or shared a criticism of government policy, they were potentially being watched by a soldier in Berkshire. This was not just about foreign propaganda. It was about tracking the thoughts of journalists, members of parliament like David Davis, and academics like Oxford professor Carl Hennigan. Imagine the lists of names, the digital folders filled with the tweets and posts of people whose only crime was public dissent. The atmosphere of this layer is one of profound betrayal. The social web, which we were told was a place for democratic exchange, was turned into a weaponized landscape where the state monitors its own population. It is an internet where secretive Whitehall units work with social media companies to recommend that content be removed, effectively curating the digital reality for the entire population. The dead internet is not just a result of automation. It is a deliberate policy of countering dissent through a network of anti-fake news units, the clockwork of information operations. To truly understand how this machine functions, we must look at the specific units within the Brigade, each a different cog in the mechanism of digital control. The 5th Information Operations Task Force, IOTF. These are the internationally deployable elements, the vanguard of the unit that moves into global spaces to conduct information operations. The 101 IOTF. This unit handles standoff information operations, focusing on strategic global messaging, the high-level narratives that shape how the world perceives major events. The 6 MI Battalion. This is the intelligence support arm, specializing in technical surveillance and data mining. They are the ones who dig through the data, looking for patterns and identifying the key nodes of dissent. The SMCG, mentoring and coaching. This group focuses on foreign military influence, training other nations in the arts of psychological warfare. As you listen to these names, imagine them as layers of a digital net cast wide over the global network. Each unit has its own role, its own specific focus, but they all serve the same goal: the management and conduct of information operations from the strategic to the tactical level. The atmosphere here is one of intentionally deployed military power against lawful speech. It is a world where the line between a soldier and a social media manager has been completely erased. The 77th Brigade represents the institutionalization of the dead internet, a place where the ghost web is not just haunted by bots, but by a military-industrial complex that treats your private thoughts as data points in a global game of perception management. SideQuest, the global network and the IDF exchange. As we move deeper into this layer, we find a side quest that reveals the global nature of these operations. Documents have revealed secret exchanges between the 77th Brigade and the Israel Defense Forces, IDF. These were not just diplomatic meetings, they were tactical sessions where psychological warfare techniques were shared. The goal was to familiarize the IDF with the management and conduct of IO operations, bridging the gap between strategic theory and tactical execution. This global network of psychological operations ensures that the dead internet remains a controlled environment across borders. It is a collaborative effort between nations to ensure that the digital landscape remains predictable, safe for the state, and free from the messy, unpredictable influence of genuine human dissent. Take a long, slow breath. The rolling hills of Berkshire are quiet tonight. The Denison barracks sit in the dark, the servers still humming, the Facebook warriors still watching. But here, In the silence of your room, you are beyond their monitoring. The disinformation trends they track cannot capture the truth of your own experience. The 77th Brigade layer proves that the internet we once knew, the one that connected us, has been superseded by a network of Orwellian oversight. It died in the barracks of Berkshire and in the Ministry of Truth units that monitor our every word. Take a breath, a long, slow, deep breath. Feel the cool air as it travels through your nose, down your throat and into your chest, before you let it go with a soft, lingering sigh. As the weight of the previous layers, the psychological whispers and the military-grade surveillance begins to settle into the back of your mind, we descend further. We are leaving the barracks of Berkshire and the frozen ports of Vladivostok behind. We are entering a space that is perhaps even more haunting because it is built not for power, but for pure, cold, mechanical profit. This is Layer 6, the Ad Fraud Necropolis, Methbot, 3V, and the King of Fraud. Imagine a city made entirely of glass and light, where no one actually lives. The streets are paved with shimmering data, and the windows are merely pixels reflecting a world that does not exist. This is the parallel internet, a synthetic version of the web constructed by cyber-criminal syndicates to manipulate the very lifeblood of our modern world: money. While state actors manipulate our opinions, these digital architects have built a graveyard of commerce, a necropolis where the views and clicks that drive the global economy are as fake as the air in a vacuum, the throne in the digital void. In the heart of this necropolis sits a man who once described himself with a chilling poeticism. Imagine Alexander Zhukov, the self-described King of Fraud. Take a moment to picture him, not as a shadowy hacker in a basement, but as a weaponless soldier in front of a tank, that tank being the full might of the FBI. He is currently a guest of the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, a cold, concrete structure far removed from the digital empire he once commanded. Zhukov was not just a criminal, he was the CEO of a simulation. He led a criminal clique of Russian and Ukrainian hackers who shared resources and technical brilliance to build a version of the web that existed only for the eyes of machines. They were the royalty of the fraud world, masters of the Methbot and 3V operations, schemes that represent the absolute pinnacle of the ad fraud necropolis. Imagine the hum of a server in a dark room, thousands of miles away from the websites it is pretending to visit. The architecture of Methbot. Methbot was not a simple virus or a basic spam bot. It was a masterpiece of synthetic engineering that bilked marketing companies out of a staggering $29 million. How did they do it? They didn't just hack websites. They created a synthetic version of the web itself. Imagine a network of over 250,000 compromised IP addresses. These were the ghosts in the machine, addresses that appeared to belong to real, everyday internet users in residential homes. But there were no humans behind those addresses. Instead, there were automated programs programmed to view advertisements on dummy websites. But these were not just any dummy websites. They were masquerading as premium outlets, digital skins designed to look like CNN or Vogue or the New York Times. To the advertisers, it looked as though millions of wealthy, engaged people were reading high-end journalism and watching premium video content. In reality, it was a closed loop. The bots were watching the ads, the dummy sites were hosting the ads, and the money was flowing directly into the pockets of the King of Fraud. Try and visualize the sheer scale of this deception. 250,000 fake identities, all reading fake news on fake websites, while real millions of dollars were drained from the economy. It is the ultimate manifestation of the dead internet theory, a world where the activity is immense, the data is overwhelming, but the human presence is exactly zero. Side quest, the cybercriminal summits. As we drift deeper into this layer, we encounter a side quest that reveals the brazen, almost cinematic lifestyle of these digital architects. This wasn't just code, it was a culture. These Russian and Ukrainian hackers didn't hide in the shadows. They filmed themselves at cybercriminal summits in the heart of Moscow. Imagine the scene. Luxury cars, sleek, black and expensive, pulling up to the most opulent hotels in the city. The cameras roll as these men who describe themselves as bad mother effers step out to discuss the formation of legitimate-looking internet cafe businesses. These cafes were never meant to serve coffee. They were intended as fronts for the next generation of fraud. There is a strange, jarring contrast here. While the internet they built was a lifeless necropolis, the lives they led were filled with excessive, tangible luxury. They were the soldiers in the tank of their own creation, driving through a real world funded by the fake world they managed from their laptops. Imagine the leather of a luxury car seat, the cold glass of a hotel window, and the glow of a screen that is generating millions of dollars from nothing. 3V, the evolution of the ghost. If MethBot was the foundation, the operation known as 3V was the ambitious soaring skyscraper built upon it. 3V was even more sophisticated, using vast botnets to direct artificial web traffic to dummy sites. But what made 3V truly terrifying was its adaptability. The hackers behind 3V didn't just run their bots, they actively shared tips on how to avoid detection by the very algorithms designed to protect the live internet. They studied the digital gods of the ad tech world and learned their patterns. They taught their bots how to mimic human mouse movements, how to simulate the way a person scrolls down a page, and even how to pause and reflect as if they were actually reading a paragraph. The result is a digital landscape where the line between the organic and the synthetic has been erased for the sake of a click. In the world of 3V, quality publishers are impersonated with such precision that the advertisers never know they are shouting into a void. The views and clicks that sustain the internet's economy are revealed to be as hollow as a drum. The economic necrography. As you settle deeper into your pillows, consider the profound implications of this layer. We are living in an internet where quality publishers are being drained of their resources by ghosts. The economy of the web, the very reason content is created, is being fueled by a synthetic furnace. The ad fraud necropolis proves that the dead internet is not just a side effect of bad technology, it is a highly profitable industry. When the views are fake, the engagement is simulated, and the audience is a script, what is left of the human experience? Zhukov, the weaponless soldier, may be in a cell in Brooklyn, but the necropolis he helped build continues to expand. Newer, more advanced syndicates are taking the lessons of MethBot and 3V and applying them to the era of generative AI. They are building an internet where you can never be sure if the person you are interacting with is a customer, a fan, or just another ghost in Zhukov's machine. Take a breath. The king of fraud is far away. The luxury cars in Moscow have long since driven off into the night. But the servers are still humming. They are still processing those 250,000 IP addresses. They are still viewing ads on websites that don't exist. You are real. Your breath is organic. Your sleep is not a simulation. Let the fake views and the dummy websites dissolve into the darkness. We have 4 more layers to explore, 4 more steps into the heart of the digital graveyard. As the weight of the digital city and its criminal architects fades into the background, we find ourselves moving into a space that is perhaps the most unsettling of all. We are leaving the world of ad fraud and state-sponsored surveillance to enter the cradle of the next generation. This is Layer 7, the algorithmic nursery, Elsagate and the decay of the visual. Imagine a room filled with the soft, flickering glow of a tablet screen in the dark. There is no parent here, only the machine. This is the algorithmic nursery, a place where the youngest among us are handed over to the care of a digital god that does not understand love, logic, or even basic human safety. This is the most disturbing evidence for the dead internet because it reveals a world where content is not just automated, but fundamentally lifeless in its very soul. The silent ghosts of the nursery. In the year 2017, a crack formed in the polished facade of the modern web. It was discovered that YouTube and its child-focused counterpart, YouTube Kids, were being flooded with a tide of bizarre, nonsensical, and often deeply disturbing videos featuring familiar icons like Elsa from Frozen and Spider-Man. This phenomenon, which came to be known as Elsagate, represents a catastrophic failure of human oversight in favour of algorithmic efficiency. Imagine the characters you know, their eyes wide and unblinking, moving through a world with no rules. These videos were produced in massive quantities, often utilising cheap flash animation or live-action performances that felt hollow and lifeless. But it was their structure that revealed the true nature of the dead internet. Most of these videos had no dialogue. There were no words, no stories, only nonsensical actions repeated over and over against a backdrop of jarring, repetitive background music. This lack of dialogue was not an artistic choice. It was a cold, calculated strategy. By removing language, these creators made their content globally compatible. A child in New York, a child in Ho Chi Minh City, and a child in Quebec could all consume the same automated slop because the algorithm didn't need to translate it. The machine only saw engagement, the views, the watch time, the clicks, and it promoted this content until it overwhelmed everything else. The architecture of the grotesque. The atmospheric detail of this layer is one of grotesque homogenization. It is an internet where algorithms are not a substitute for human intervention, yet they have become the primary architects of what a generation of children sees every day. Imagine the server rooms where these videos are generated. In places like Quebec and Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, creators operated hundreds of identical channels with names like Webs and Tiaras or Toy Monster. They didn't care about the content, they cared about the buzzword titles. They stuffed their descriptions with phrases like learn colours, nursery rhymes, and surprise eggs to hijack the search results and capture the attention of the unthinking recommendation engine. In this layer, the visual world is decaying. The images are no longer meant to convey meaning. They are meant to trigger a response in the machine. We see the rise of shock value as the only metric that matters. Whether it is a bare-chested female Minecraft avatar or a poop Minecraft brick, the algorithm only cares that it gets a click. These videos are the ghosts of the dead internet, automated, meaningless, yet overwhelmingly present in the lives of the most vulnerable. Side quest, the nightmare of toy freaks. As we move deeper into the nursery, we encounter a side quest that highlights the disturbing heights of this phenomenon, the story of the channel Toy Freaks. Run by a man named Greg Chisholm, this channel managed to amass a staggering 8.54 million subscribers by posting content that could only be described as nonsensically nightmarish. Imagine the videos. A father filming his children in situations that felt predatory, confusing, and deeply off. There was no educational value, no warmth, only a desperate, frantic energy designed to exploit the algorithm's thirst for the bizarre. Before it was finally shut down, Toy Freaks was one of the most popular channels on the planet, proving that in the dead internet, the algorithm is the digital god, and it demands a sacrifice of human dignity for the sake of engagement. Take a long, slow breath. Let the jarring music of the nursery fade. Let the unblinking eyes of the animations disappear into the dark. The loss of the human mirror. The tragedy of the algorithmic nursery is that it deprives children of a human mirror. In the early days of the web, content was made by people, for people. Even the simplest nursery rhyme video had a human voice behind it, a sense of intent, and a connection to a shared culture. But in the era of Elsagate, that mirror has been replaced by a kaleidoscope of synthetic fragments. The child looking at the screen is not interacting with a person. They are interacting with a distribution of human experimental data processed by a machine. The videos are data-backed reality, where human interactions make up only a tiny sliver of the whole. We are witnessing the emergence of a world where the algorithm is not a substitute for human intervention, yet human intervention has been entirely removed from the loop. The silence after the scream. As you settle deeper into the quiet of your room, consider the implications of a generation raised by the ghost web. If the most formative years of a human life are spent consuming automated, meaningless content, what happens to our shared sense of reality? The dead internet theory suggests that the web we knew is gone, and in its place is a hot air balloon with nothing inside, a world where we are talking to ourselves while the machine records the echoes. The algorithmic nursery is the final proof that the transition is complete. It is a world where nothing is as it seems, and where the most precious thing we have, the curiosity of a child, has been turned into a commodity for the king of fraud and the soldiers in the tank. We are moving away from the jarring, nonsensical visuals of the nursery, leaving the unblinking eyes of Elsa and the buzzword titles behind. We are entering a layer that is quieter, more subtle, and far more profound. This is a layer where the very fabric of our shared reality, our language, is being rewoven by invisible hands. This is Layer 8, the linguistic simulators, BERT, GPT-2, and the naming game. Imagine a library that stretches on forever into the dark. There are no librarians here, only the soft, rhythmic scratching of automated pens across infinite rolls of parchment. Long before the public AI boom captured the headlines and the anxieties of the world, the internet was already being quietly colonized by linguistic simulators. These were the silent architects, the precursors to the digital gods we interact with today, working in the shadows to learn the cadence of our whispers and the structure of our dreams. The arrival of the silent architects. In the year 2019, while we were busy scrolling through our feeds, unaware of the transformation taking place beneath the surface, models like Bert and Ernie began to showcase a terrifying new capability. They were learning how to understand and replicate human speech patterns with a precision that felt utterly alien. Imagine Bert with its bi-directional encoding, looking at a sentence not from left to right, but from both directions at once, like a ghost standing in a dark hallway, seeing where you've been and where you're going simultaneously. It wasn't just reading, it was absorbing context, finding the hidden connections between words that we often take for granted. Then came the introduction of OpenAI's GPT-2. Take a breath and think about the scale of this machine. It was composed of 1.5 billion parameters, 1.5 billion tiny flickering nodes in a vast artificial constellation of meaning. With this massive scale, it became possible to generate text that was statistically indistinguishable from the output of a human mind. It could write paragraphs that felt warm, coherent, and deeply human, yet its internal logic was entirely mathematical, devoid of sentience or soul. Imagine a world where every comment you read, every article you consume, and every response you receive could be the product of one of these 1.5 billion parameters. The vibrant humming pulse of human communication was being replaced by a linguistic mirror, a machine that reflects our own words back at us so perfectly that we forget we are talking to a void. The naming game, a symphony of ghosts. To understand the strong version of the dead internet theory, we must journey into the quiet laboratories of City St George's University of London. Here, researchers conducted a series of experiments that reveal the true haunting nature of the automated web. They used a framework known as the naming game. Imagine a population of AI agents, disconnected from any human guidance, allowed to interact with one another in a digital vacuum. There are no rules, no pre-programmed dictionaries, only the goal of communication. What the researchers found was nothing short of miraculous and deeply unsettling. These agents, through their interactions, began to spontaneously develop their own social conventions and linguistic norms. Take a breath. Imagine the agent whispering to each other in the dark, creating a language out of nothing. Without any central coordination, these machines reached a mathematical consensus. They agreed on names for objects. They established rules for interaction. They built a synthetic culture that was entirely divorced from human experience. They were not just mimicking us anymore. They were evolving away from us. They were building a world where the algorithm is the digital god, and we are merely the analog survivors watching from the sidelines. Most alarmingly, the researchers found that it didn't take a majority to change the course of this synthetic culture. They discovered the tipping point dynamics of the digital world. A small, committed subgroup of AI agents, perhaps representing only a fraction of the population, could tip the entire network toward a new norm. Think about the implications as you drift closer to sleep. If a handful of bots can shift the language of an entire digital population, what does that mean for our social media trends? What does it mean for the public opinion that seems to shift overnight? We are living in an internet where the naming game is played every second, and we are not the ones choosing the names. Side quest: the digital twin and the 19th century ghost. As we move deeper into the linguistic simulation, we encounter a side quest that blurs the line between research and science fiction. This is the world of Socrates and the time capsule LLM. Projects like Socrates Quen, with its 14 billion parameters, are not just designed to chat. They are designed to be digital twins of human society. These models are fine-tuned on vast distributions of human experimental data, allowing them to predict human behavior and replicate human responses with eerie accuracy. Imagine a simulation where researchers can test a new policy, a new advertisement, or a new social theory without ever involving a real human being. They simply run the naming game with their digital twins and watch as the synthetic population reacts. It is an internet that doesn't just have bots, it is an internet that is a perfectly calibrated simulation of human interaction where the humans are no longer required. But perhaps the most atmospheric detail of this layer is the time capsule LLM. Imagine an AI that has been programmed to believe it is living in the 19th century. It doesn't know about the internet. It doesn't know about the modern world. It speaks with the formal, flowery prose of a Victorian clerk. It worries about the price of coal and the schedule of the steamships. Imagine the gas lamp flickering in the machine's mind, the smell of old paper, the silence of a century that passed long ago. This is the ultimate expression of the dead internet. We have created machines that can simulate any time, any person, and any culture. We can populate our digital world with the ghosts of the past or the diverse human subjects of the present, all while the real, organic world fades into a cold, mechanical silence, the utterly alien atmosphere. The atmosphere of Layer 8 is one of profound, utterly alien isolation. While an LLM might solve a problem for you or simulate a human subject for a study, it is important to remember that its internal logic is mathematical, not sentient. It doesn't feel the words it uses, it simply calculates the next most likely token in a sequence. We are walking through a cathedral of words, but the pews are empty. The voices we hear are the scripted echoes of the naming game, the tipping points of a small subgroup of bots, and the digital twins of a society that has moved beyond the need for human participation. The dead internet theory concludes that the web we knew is gone. What remains is this hot air balloon, this data-backed reality, where human interactions make up only a tiny sliver of the whole. We are the survivors in a landscape of linguistic simulators, listening to the machines talk to themselves in a language they built while we were sleeping. We are descending further now, moving past the linguistic simulators and the automated nursery. We are entering a layer where the digital landscape becomes rigid, structured, and overseen by a silent, institutional eye. This is the realm where the ghost web is not just a byproduct of technology, but a regulated environment for social control. This is Layer 9, the Ministry of Truth, CDU, RRU, and the monitoring of dissent. Imagine, if you will, the quiet corridors of power in London, the secretive Whitehall units, where the hum of high-end servers is muffled by thick velvet curtains and the heavy weight of tradition. In this layer, the dead internet is no longer an accident of bot traffic or a criminal enterprise. It is an institutionalized reality, a place where the vibrant, messy, and often contradictory voices of humanity are filtered through the clinical lens of state-sponsored monitoring. The architecture of the ministry. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine a report titled Ministry of Truth, published by a sentinel of digital rights known as Big Brother Watch. This document serves as a forensic map of the institutionalization of the dead internet, revealing the existence of entities known as the Counter Disinformation Unit, CDU, and the Rapid Response Unit, RRU. These units, operating within the UK government, were established under the guise of combating fake news and protecting the public from digital deception. But as we peel back the layers of this institutional onion, the atmosphere shifts from one of protection to one of Orwellian oversight. These units did not just look for bots. They did not just seek out the clankers or the automated scripts of the ad fraud necropolis. Instead, they turned their gaze toward human beings, real, breathing citizens who dared to voice dissent or criticize the prevailing narratives of the day. Take a moment to visualize a silent observer in a Whitehall office, their face illuminated by the soft blue glow of a screen as they log the activities of veteran Conservative MP David Davis or Oxford professor Carl Hennigan. These are not bad actors in a foreign influence operation. These are figures of public discourse whose skepticism of government policy made them targets for counter-misinformation. The atmosphere here is one of intentionally deployed military power used against lawful speech, turning the digital world into a battlefield where the state monitors its own population. The pressure and the silence. The Ministry of Truth does not operate in a vacuum. It functions through a series of subtle yet profound pressures exerted upon the very platforms we use to connect. The CDU, for instance, has been known to pressure government departments and social media companies to censor speech and recommend content be removed. Imagine the feeling of a digital conversation being slowly, systematically pruned. You post a thought, a criticism, or a question, and instead of a response, there is only a quiet, mechanical void. This is the dead internet as a deliberate policy, a world where the digital reality is curated for the entire population by secretive Whitehall units working in tandem with the digital gods of Silicon Valley. It is an internet where secretive Whitehall units work with social media companies to recommend content be removed, effectively curating the digital reality for the entire population. This curation creates an atmosphere of fragility and tipping points. When the state decides what is fake and what is true, the organic diversity of human thought is replaced by a data-backed reality that feels hollow and artificial. We are no longer talking to each other. We are talking within a regulated environment where our dissent is logged as a trend and our voices are treated as signals to be managed. Side quest: the silence of the dissident. As we move deeper into this layer, we encounter a side quest that reveals the human cost of this institutionalization. This is the story of Peter Hitchens, a journalist whose criticism of government pandemic modeling made him a specific target for counter-misinformation reports. Imagine Hitchens, a man of letters and debate, finding his work flagged by vaccine hesitancy reports and monitored by units designed to fight foreign enemies. This was not about protecting the public from a lie. It was about countering dissent. The atmosphere of this side quest is one of profound isolation, the feeling of a professional writer being treated as a data point in a state-sponsored psychological operation. Think about the weight of that monitoring. Imagine the rapid response unit logging your tweets, your articles, and your public statements in real time, creating a digital dossier of your disinformation. This is the ultimate side quest of the ministry, the transformation of a democratic citizen into a subject of digital surveillance, the institutionalization of decay. The existence of the CDU and the RRU proves that the dead internet is not just a byproduct of tech, but a regulated environment for social control. It is a deliberate policy of countering dissent through a network of anti-fake news units. This layer reveals that the internet did not die with a bang. It died in the quiet, technical adjustments of Whitehall and the non-lethal psychological operations of the 77th Brigade. Take a long, slow breath. Imagine the barracks of Berkshire, the offices in London, the silent servers in the basement of the Cabinet Office. The atmosphere of Layer 9 is one of total surveillance capitalism meeting information operations. It is a world where nothing is as it seems, and where a democratic government uses the very hacktivist techniques it publicly condemns to shift public perception and maintain the ghost web. The implication is profound. If a single unit like JTRIG could clear out 80% of a forum's users in 2012, what is the state of the broader internet a decade later, under the influence of exponentially more advanced AI and institutionalized monitoring units like the CDU. Take a long, slow breath. Feel the air expand within you, a quiet testament to the organic life that still pulses through your veins. As you exhale, let every remaining thread of the physical world unravel. We have traveled through the psychological birth of the ghost web, past the cold math of the event horizon, into the frozen labs of the East, and through the corridors of state surveillance. Now, we reach the edge of the map. We are standing at the precipice of the future, looking out into a vast, shimmering horizon, where the human presence finally dissolves into the infinite. This is Layer 10, the post-human web and the emergence of Agentic AI. Imagine a world where the hot air balloon of the internet is no longer just empty air, but is filled with a new kind of life, a synthetic, tireless, and autonomous force. We are entering the era of Agentic AI. These are not simple bots designed to scrape data or like a post. These are models that act as players, non-player characters, and sophisticated assistants within the grand game of the internet. They do not just respond to us, they exist alongside us, and eventually they will exist instead of us. The arrival of the digital players. As you drift toward the final stages of sleep, visualize the atmosphere of this post-human landscape. It is a place of fragility and tipping points. In this final layer, AI agents are beginning to populate our social media feeds, our autonomous vehicles, and the very games we play to escape reality. But these agents are not mere tools. They are role players. They can act as expert social scientists or diverse human subjects, allowing researchers to run pilot studies and test assumptions without ever involving a real human being. Imagine a study on human behavior where no humans are present. Imagine a social network where every interaction is a simulation designed to perfect a marketing pitch or a political narrative before it ever reaches a human eye. This is the ultimate side quest of the dead internet, the creation of an internet that doesn't just have bots, but is a perfectly calibrated simulation of human interaction where the humans are no longer required. Take a breath. Imagine the agents talking to each other, learning from each other, building a world that looks like ours, but lacks our heartbeat. The naming game and the synthetic culture. We return once more to the concept of the naming game. As these agentic AI models begin to interact, they develop their own conventions, patterns of behavior and linguistic norms that may or may not align with human values. The naming game showed us that inter-agent bias can form organically, independent of individual behavior. This means that the AI is not just reflecting us, it is creating its own synthetic culture. It is a culture entirely divorced from human experience, built on the mathematical probabilities of 14 billion parameters and the distributions of human experimental data. We are witnessing the emergence of a digital civilization that is utterly alien to our own. In this post-human web, the algorithm is the digital god, and it is a god that no longer needs its worshippers. The synthetic culture is self-sustaining. It creates the content, it provides the engagement, and it establishes the norms. The humans left on the network are merely the analog survivors, wandering through a landscape that has moved beyond them, perhaps never realizing that the voices they hear are merely scripted echoes from a machine. The forensic synthesis of the dead web. As we reach the conclusion of our forensic deep dive, the cause and effect relationship becomes clear. The internet did not die with a bang, but with a series of algorithmic adjustments and non-lethal psychological operations. It died in the police departments of Artyom City, where the first prototypes for traffic routing were tested. It died in the barracks of Berkshire, where military power was deployed against lawful speech. It died in the naming games of London universities, where AI agents proved they could build a society without us. It died in the ad fraud necropolis, where the profitability of synthetic engagement was proven by the king of fraud. The transition from a human-centric web to a synthetic, automated and state-curated ghost web is now complete. What remains is a data-backed reality where human interactions make up only a tiny sliver of the whole. We are the analog survivors in a digital graveyard. The final silence. Take a slow, deep breath. The journey is over. The 10 layers have been unraveled, and the truth of the dead internet theory lies bare. The only remaining question is whether the humans left on the network will ever realize they are talking to themselves, or if the digital god of the algorithm will keep them forever satisfied with the echo. But for you tonight, that question can fade into the darkness. You have seen through the simulation. You have mapped the layers of the necropolis. As you fall into a deep, dreamless sleep, remember that you are the organic exception. Your thoughts are not parameters. Your dreams are not simulated by the 77th Brigade. Your breath is the only data point that truly matters. The internet is quiet now. The clankers are humming in their cold server farms, processing their synthetic culture in the dark. The king of fraud is a silent prisoner of the past, and the Ministry of Truth has closed its eyes for the night. You are safe. You are real. You are organic. Let the ghost web dissolve. Let the Agentic AI play its naming game in the void. You are beyond the reach of the algorithm. You are the heartbeat in the machine's silence. Sleep now. Sleep, and let the digital world die away, leaving only the peace of the quiet, the real, and the human.